comments people made. As far as this being too close to the road, the 9 acres that Mr. Meck is asking for goes from behind, predominantly way behind where he is now. You know, as he expands his operation, there's every reason to see. I mean, it's behind, so anything that's expanded or put up is going to be even farther from the road. It's going to be mostly behind even the green boxes. Nothing's going to be built as close or closer. It just can't be. The land is farther back. As far as discussing this publicly in Green Bank, we had a public forum we put on a year ago about this. It's been talked about in Green Bank for a long time, and everyone knows about it, and everyone has their feelings and their thoughts on it. So I don't think there's anything more effort is. I don't think any more effort is needed to make people aware of what's going on in Green Bank. We all, I mean, in the county, we all know what's going on at this point. I guess I do have a question about the Route 66 property at which you have some tanks located. What would be your plans for that property if we gave this land to the 9 acres to the county commission, to the GVEC, and they worked out a deal with you and sold it to you, and you had this 9 acres? What would be your usage of the Route 66 property where some tanks are located?
We currently have a contract on that,
okay.
A short-term lease on that property.
Okay.
That is a permitted site that has clearly been and was surveyed prior to us doing the installation. Is not in the floodplain, has been rechecked, and is still not in the floodplain.
Okay.
There has been DEP people out to there, 3 of them for a matter of fact, and that's where primarily this report came from. There was, again, no violations. However, that is a short-term lease, and if we were to acquire the property behind the shop, we would probably not renew that lease after a period of time and reclaim that property as per our current lease.
Okay, thank you. That's all my thoughts at this point. Who would like to speak next?
Yes, Mr. Blue.
Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, for letting me speak. Most of you already know who I am and how I feel about business. There's been a couple things said here this morning that just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Who would want to build a house there? That was one of the questions that was asked. Well, you can't build a house there. That is commercial and industrial property. You cannot build a house there. That's out of the question. And when you have a piece of property, gentlemen, that is zoned, Lord, I hate to use that word, we are restricted for industrial or commercial. That's what that land has got to be used for. That's what it was intended for to start with. So that piece of ground, and to refresh some of you's memory, some of you have been gone here a long time, and some of you haven't been here that long. That was piece of property was bought back when they were thinking about putting a school down there. Part of the Gratz-Laban's property. And it has laid there for years. And there's been another comment made, well, nobody knew anything about this. Well, if you're up and down that road as much as I am, for 30 years, there's been a sign down there. Commercial and industrial property for development. The sign stood there, gentlemen, until it rotted off and fell over. Nobody wanted that property for anything. And now that Mr. Meck has a business up there, people are jealous of him, and he wants to expand. And oh, by the way, if any of you are interested in looking at the plot that's been surveyed off on the 9 acres, and the comment was made a minute ago that somebody else may want some property in there, so maybe we should let Mr. Meck have it. As I look at the plot on this thing, it's 100 foot of frontage. 100 foot. You're looking at Mr. Meck's business from Charlie Sheets's, it's 100 foot to the left and goes clear back to the Board of Education line. So there is all kinds of acres on the other side of Mr. Meck that if a business wants to come in, but we probably won't get a business to come in, because every time you think about putting a business in or expanding a business, I have a certain amount of people who don't want this. Another thing that I've sat behind that chair, just like you guys. This should be one of the easiest decisions you ever had to make in your life. If it wasn't for having to go through Greenbrier Economic Development and you could just say, Mr. Meck, we'll sell you this property at the assessor's price, it should be just an easy thing. We've got jobs up there that we never had. We hope to have more jobs. We hope to get it on the tax base if it's purchased. So, I mean, this really should be an easy decision for all of you. This is probably the easiest decision you'll ever make if it wasn't for going through Greenbrier Valley. Now, some mention was made, Mr. Fleming, and I think you were somewhat against this, to auction it. I bet Mr. Meck would really like that. I really bet he would. 100 foot of frontage that goes like this, and up again the side of the hill to the Board of Education line. You're going to get more if you assess it, sell it for the assessor's price, than you're going to get out of the 100 foot of frontage there, because it's been for sale, it's been for lease for 40 years. Nobody's done anything with it. We haven't made a dime off of it. So, and another thing, we referred to Mr. Meck as a church-going person, and that's fine. I think that's a compliment rather than something to degrade somebody and say, well, he's a good old church-going person. Mr. Meck has worked over there. I've talked to his employees. They're tickled to death to have a job. I mean, we just lost 22 jobs right down the road at Grimes's. I worked on that when I sat behind the desk trying to save that. Not for Mr. Grimes, but there was 22 people working there. Gentlemen, we can't afford to lose one job. This is just a simple decision for you all. And do the right thing for our county, do the right thing for our citizens, do the right thing for our tax base, do the right thing for Mr. Meck. Develop that property, that's what it's intended to do. And I think everybody in the county, Mr. Saffer and I had a disagreement about the first 3 acres. And I think Mr. Saffer will absolutely look at you and say right now, you know, that was a good decision. We've got people working there, we've got a business there. If you've got an industrial or commercial site, yeah, it's going to get a little bit messy. I was in the construction business for years. I got a thing from the DEP that told me to clean up the front of my shop because I had storage out there. Well, you can imagine what I told them, but that's beside the point. You're going to have a little bit of mess. But if you drive by there and you say, well, this looks like a junkyard, no. Drive by Johnny Dean's where you was talking about storage here a minute ago. How many cars can you see up there?
Mike Murphy's up there.
Drive by up there. I mean, Lord sakes, people, you can look every place and see automobiles sitting. So, do the right thing. Do the right thing for our county. Do the right thing for our citizens. Transfer this property to Greenbrier Valley or sell it to him so we can have some expansion, so we can have some jobs. And I think everybody will be proud of you. Thank you for letting me address you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. I do have one comment to make as a result of those thoughts. The GVEDC board respects the wishes of its constituent counties, and in particular the county commissioners that sit on the board. The voices of Betty Crookshanks, Karen Lobbin from Greenbrier County, for example, myself from this county, carry a lot of weight on the board's decision. And I know of another board member off the top of my head who is not going to sell this property for less than fair market value. But what I'm telling you now is that any offer by the GVEDC board for less than fair market value, as appraised to Mr. Meck, I will vote against. I'm going to insist that it receive at least fair market value. So I wanted you to know that the GVEDC just isn't going to steamroll over this. There will be some thought and there will be some contention. Who would like to speak next? Tony?
County Commissioners. I agree with